So two big things to discuss with this week's episode of The Promised Neverland, the first of which is the demons and the idea of religious hunting and how hunting wild humans would not go against these two's religion, but the idea of, kids coming from a cattle farm, to them they won't touch them, but they have no problems with their offspring, versus the other side of the episode, which is Minerva's den here, something that looked too good to be true, turned out to seemingly be too good to be true, and personally, the optimist in me is hoping that Minerva actually is a savior, and that the help me sign isn't from Minerva, but maybe demons or something else, maybe inward fighting, maybe there was not enough food or something to go around, hard to say. But hopefully, something good will happen here. But you knew at episode 3 of an 11-episode season, no way is this den going to be perfect forever, this little bunker. But still, very interesting stuff. I definitely want to jump into the demon side first, because this is still the most fascinating concept to me. I discussed it quite a lot in length last week, with the idea of the concept of how if these kids end up breaking the pact that was made, you could honestly cause more harm than good. But in this episode, we get to see that I still firmly believe that these two demons, they're not bad people. The female seems to be more neutral than the other, where, you can definitely look and say that's a venomous look there. He's definitely an evil bastard, but I can't say that. When watching this episode and hearing what he was saying about these kids, how they have great brains, they naturally do want to eat them because for the same as humans eating animals, for most cultures and most people out there, that's just what you do to survive, and it tastes good. That's the simple concept. So for them, he thinks they're good kids. I have nothing against them, and I'm not going to eat them because they were raised on a farm. That goes against my beliefs. But hunting is something that doesn't go against our religion. I will hunt them wildly, but since they originally came and they were bred in a farm, he will never touch them. But if they have kids and they'll have perfect brains because they were raised to be the best type of cattle, then he has no problems doing that. You could look at that and say he's a monster and things like that, but how can we realistically, in good conscience, say that that's wrong versus what we do? Because when I was watching this and thinking, I was thinking of people who were raised on a farm. They had a cattle farm, a pig farm, whatever it is. Generally, if you're a kid growing up in a situation like that, you usually have a wild animal that generally you wouldn't call a pet, but because you're raised on a farm, this pig's going to be your pet, or this cow's going to be your pet, even though they're naturally supposed to be raised for slaughter. Usually the parents will say, okay, this one thing, you can have that will be your pet, but we're going to eat its brother and sisters. We're going to eat its mother and father, right? So to me, I didn't really see any difference in that concept versus what the demons were basically doing. The only reason we naturally want to push back against that is because they look like demons, right? They look like monsters versus we are humans, we can do no wrong. What we're doing to animals is quite different. They can't talk with us. And while I do think even if animals could talk and have human interactions similar to what we can do with each and every one of us, even though I do think there would be a drastic dip in how many people eat meat, I do think a majority would still eat meat. Even if they could talk, they just wouldn't want to look him in the eye when the slaughterhouse happens. So I find that very fascinating, and while I do think it'll bring up a lot of discussion surrounding the topic, I still can't look at these demons as being bad. They're still protecting them, and they're making sure that they do survive in the wilderness. I mean, he slaughtered all the pursuers, so he can't say he's a bad person, but I am interested to see the concept and the dilemma and further to see what could happen down the line with these two demons if we do get to see them again. Now, in terms of Minerva's hideout here, I thought that was quite interesting and I liked it quite a bit. I mean, it was pretty clear that, when they got to the destination point and nothing was there, it wasn't going to end there. I was personally thinking that maybe it glitched out and was actually further off than what happened, but the idea that it would only go so far and once you got to the location, then you could do more and activate the bunker. The bunker was awesome, and I think they covered the tracks quite well to show how there could be electricity, the idea of using fecal matter, the water and everything like that. It was basically built to be a safe haven, and you don't look at it as yet again another cattle farm. But at the same time, you did have the question, how could this be so perfect? To me, originally, it was going to be there wasn't going to be enough food, so that was going to be the struggling point. But the idea that you could plant and they already have seeds and there's animals outside, there was no real struggle. And to see them actually kind of feel like they're back at the farm without the lingering threat of doom, of mama coming down and smacking some sense into you, it felt good to see them actually be kids and feel like they could live there forever. And when you see the help me sign and then you see the phone after using the pen to open up the door, it does get your mind racing, but the optimist in me wants to say that Minerva couldn't be a bad person, and Minerva has to be a descendant of Minerva, right? There's no way that this could be the same person unless somehow ages can be a lot longer in this world than the normal human world. So I'm fascinated to see what is the deal with that message, because I feel like there's a couple of routes they could go. Either demons got in there and this was used as a cattle farm, there was inward fighting between the humans that were there before, or Minerva's a scumbag. Those are kind of like my thought process, and I don't even think either one of those are going to be right, so that's kind of fun to think about. I think there's a lot of emotion, I think there's a lot of stakes, and there's also a lot of payoff. I feel like even though it was only a few days of them running for the anime, I mean, even though we only saw these demons for 6 days, less than a week, it still felt like we got connected to this and we thought there was a threat. And the idea that they were able to avoid these pursuers not in an unnatural way. Literally, you have badass demon cutting apart pursuers as he's saying, go this direction and you won't have any issues. And in the rare case you do, I taught you how to use a bow, you should be fine. So the fact that they did come across shelter and things like that, I'm really excited to see what's going to happen, because it kind of reminds me of like the Underground Railroad and things like that, based on how the bunker and how the messages are being passed along. So I'm not going to be shocked if this bunker they can't stay at forever and they're going to have to go to another one and another one and another one, or something to that nature. The idea that they actually have the radio is really cool, because now they'll be able to listen in and actually have a way to kind of like get the jump on these farms, so to speak, and the idea that they were given an amulet of so-called protection. Curious to see what that's going to do, if it's going to be like a communicator between them, so maybe they can call in the demons in need be. Hard to say, but I mean, this was a great episode. I think really going in line with last week, like thought process, getting your mind racing, getting the concept of what makes someone a person, because yeah, they're not humans, but they interact similar to us and they raise things for cattle the same way humans do. The only difference is their cattle can talk back. So it's kind of a hard thing to like swallow, because you naturally want to push back against the demons, but the fact that the Promised Neverland is going, like I compared to last week, the Attack on Titan approach, rather than just painting everything as good or evil, it's pretty morally gray, and it's an interesting kind of thought process to have, all things considered. Like, the visual directing is still completely on point. The most horrifying aspect was definitely like the closing moments and the red lighting and things. But overall, I really just love how Promised Neverland gets you in the thought process of these kids, even the temper tantrums, so to speak. You know, when they get to the spot and nothing's there and the kids are like bouncing up and down, they're throwing a hissy fit. I mean, they're kids. Even if they are more smart than your average kids, they are kids at the end of the day. And the way they get you into the thought process of seeing things through their perspective, it doesn't make you annoyed by them. And this is coming from someone who doesn't like kids in real life, doesn't like kids in anime, just does not like kids. But I like the kids in this show because it makes you feel connected without like excusing actions. Yeah, they're throwing a temper tantrum, but I mean, given the situation, it's not like they're crying over spilt milk. They're crying over the fact that they have no damn home and demons are trying to eat them. The show does a remarkable job at really putting you into their perspective, whether it's the horrifying, whether it's the temper tantrum, whether it's the happiness of having a hot bath after a weeks of travel, right? It's just really, really solid across the board and really elevates the anime medium into something truly special for the Promised Neverland. Once again, an amazing episode. I would still say last week was probably my favorite episode out of season 2, but this one was a very close second for sure. Let me know your thoughts down below. What did you think, and where is your theories kind of going after watching this episode? If you liked the video, obviously leave a like to show your support and hit that subscribe button if you happen new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.